I exposed my roommate's boyfriend flirting with me. Chaos ensued. My name's Lily, and lately I've been wrestling with whether I was out of line by exposing Lucy's boyfriend's constant advances toward me. Lucy and her partner, Julian, have been together for about 5 months now. From the moment Lucy steps out of the room, Julian starts showering me with compliments and even asking when our lease ends. I usually wear form-fitting outfits, and sometimes a bit of cleavage, but that's never been an open invitation for someone to swoon over me like this. What really bugs me is that Julian's flirtations have gotten so blatant and downright uncomfortable, especially since he practically lives here. I've brought it up to Lucy more times than I can count, but she just shrugs it off like I'm making a big deal out of nothing. That never made any sense. I'd been her roommate for 5 years and never before complained, even when she dated 3 other guys. Then yesterday she said Julian would be stopping by, and I figured it was the perfect chance to show her what she'd been missing. I asked Lucy to tell Julian I was just grabbing something in the hallway upstairs, so she'd watch him chatting me up in real time. She went along with it, more to humor me than anything else. When Julian arrived, I was at the sink washing dishes, and I casually mentioned that Lucy had run to the store but was right outside the door. He settled at the counter and made friendly small talk until he shifted gears into full-on flirting mode right in front of Lucy's ghost. Normally I'd walk away, but this time I stayed put so Lucy could witness every awkward compliment myself. Sure enough, Lucy reappeared, ushered Julian off to her room, and then blew up at me, accusing me of seducing her boyfriend and dressing for attention. To which I just laughed and reminded her, I wear this style every day, Lucy, so who's really at fault here? We ended up in a heated argument, trading some harsh words before retreating to our separate corners of the apartment. Since then, Lucy and I haven't spoken a word, and Julian's been holed up in her room whenever he's here. I keep replaying it in my head, wondering if I was out of line, but honestly I think the real problem is she refused to believe me. I love living in New York and can't imagine finding another roommate after all these years, but this situation has me rethinking everything. So tell me, did I go too far, or was I justified in finally holding them accountable? When trust gets broken in private, it's painful, but when it happens in front of an audience, it's unforgettable. Now imagine you're at dinner with your whole family, and one shocking sentence turns the entire room upside down. I exposed my sister's secret at a family dinner. Total chaos ensued. I shared my story on r/Am I the Bad Person, the subreddit where strangers on the internet decide who's in the right. Last night, our entire family gathered for dinner at my parents' house. I'm one of 4 siblings, me, my oldest sister, 30, my younger sister, 25, and my baby brother, 23. We'd also invited the usual crowd, our partners, cousins, aunts, uncles, and everyone else. Partway through the meal, my eldest sister and my youngest brother got into a heated spat. From where I was sitting, it seemed like she was snapping at him out of sheer frustration, probably because she was losing the argument. They were so wrapped up in their back and forth that the rest of us grew noticeably impatient. Then she blew up and blurted, "Just shut up, I'm not arguing with a 23-year-old virgin." Up until that moment, my brother had barely thrown a single jab her way. It was totally unprovoked. I'm pretty sure the wine had a lot to do with it. She can get vicious when she's tipsy. Without hesitation, I told her to grow up and quit making a spectacle of herself. She retorted that everyone already knew he was a virgin, so she hadn't said anything wrong. Her comment stung me. My brother already battles with self-esteem issues and didn't need that kind of ridicule. So I reminded her of her own track record, over 100 partners in college, which, again, was common knowledge in our family. I argued that if nobody batted an eye at her past, she had no right to trash him. To my shock, her husband claimed he'd never heard any of this before. I'd assumed he was in the loop, but apparently I was wrong. He stormed out, accusing my sister of misleading him about her history. Now everyone's pointing fingers at me, blaming me for their marriage hitting the rocks. I refused to apologize. My sister bullied my brother in front of the whole family, and I simply returned the favor. When Reddit weighed in, the top commenter said my sister earned 3 out of 5 bads for her behavior. They conceded she deserved a lesson, but also noted that I stooped to her level, so they hit me with 1.5 out of 5 bads. They appreciated that I defended my brother, but reminded me that getting revenge usually backfires. Sometimes the people closest to you hide the biggest secrets. But sometimes, it's total strangers who cross the line. Next up, one writer, one train, and one stranger who just wouldn't shut up until they got a response they didn't see coming. How I clapped back at a nosy stranger on the train. Man, I was beat after a marathon of meetings and could barely keep my eyes open. All I wanted was to catch up on Reddit messages and relax, not start another drama. Sure, I've got some salty language in my arsenal, but I save that stuff for group chats and private convos, not random public cabins. During the afternoon rush, the train was jam-packed, and an older woman and her husband squeezed in, with her plopping down right across the aisle from me. I was giggling at a spicy meme on my phone when I caught her side-eye glances, so I flicked my screen away, but she still peered over and read my chat. Then she snapped, "Don't hide it, I've seen enough, you filthy millennial," and suggested I should be ashamed of my own words. I shot back, "Well, I'm 27 and fully capable of choosing my own conversations," because I wasn't about to let her lecture me. When she scoffed and her husband shushed me, I finally leaned over and told her, "Excuse me, but how about you mind your own business?" After that, the whole car went dead silent, and I couldn't help but wonder, was I in the wrong for putting her in her place, or did she cross the line first? Standing up for yourself in public takes guts. But standing up to family? That takes something else entirely. Now picture this, your dad shows up with a pregnant girlfriend, and you realize you're done playing nice. I told my dad's pregnant girlfriend to hit the road. Here's what happened. Was I in the wrong for telling my dad and his pregnant partner to leave the house I legally inherited after they shipped my depressed sister off to our aunts? My mom passed away 3 years ago, and it still feels like yesterday sometimes. That old family home where my sister and I grew up was left to me in my mother's will, so it's legally mine. It was her ancestral property, and she made it clear she wanted her daughter to have it, no questions asked. The other vacation house went straight to my 16-year-old sister, so each of us had a place. 6 months after Mom died, my dad remarried and invited his new wife to move in with him. My sister told me that this new wife quietly stripped all our family photos off the living room walls, as if our history didn't matter. She even took down every picture of our mom, which felt like a punch in the gut. Now, the only place those memories live is on the walls of my sister's bedroom. A few months ago, my dad and his wife dropped the bomb that they're expecting twins, and it rocked all of us. My sister completely fell apart when she heard the news, since she's still grieving our mom's death. She hadn't gotten over losing her, and the pregnancy announcement triggered a full breakdown. On the night of my sister's 16th birthday party, she invited a bunch of friends over, and it turned into an all-nighter. Dad's wife was away on vacation with him and only got back that same morning, catching everyone passed out around the living room. Even though Dad knew about the party, she lost it the second she walked in. She exploded in a screaming match with my sister, accusing her of being just like Mom and a burden on Dad. Then she gave my sister an ultimatum: pack her things and go stay with our aunts immediately. That night, I was furious when I found out what happened, and I couldn't believe their nerve. The very next day I showed up, looked them both in the eye, and told them they had 1 week to get out. I knew she was 7 months along and shouldn't have to move in her condition, but I couldn't stand by and watch them mistreat my sister. I felt awful about kicking a pregnant woman to the curb, yet I couldn't let my spineless dad keep letting his wife walk all over my kid sister. In response, Dad called me a cruel brat and threatened to contest Mom's will in court. I simply told him he could try, but he'd be up against our mom's family lawyer who's already on standby. So here I am, standing my ground to protect my sister and the home Mom entrusted to me. Sometimes protecting your family means shutting the door on someone else's dream, even if they're carrying your sibling. This next guy thought he found a golden ticket. Problem is, the woman holding it wasn't about to be played. My boyfriend tried to tap into my $4 million inheritance, red flag alert. I still can't believe I walked away from a surprise $4 million windfall when Grandpa passed a few months back, and now my boyfriend acts like he's entitled to every penny. I had no clue he'd left that much behind. I just assumed everything would go to Mom, so when the check cleared, I was floored. Once I caught my breath, I seized the chance to quit the job I hated, no debts, and I can live comfortably on about 40 grand a year. You don't know me, but I'm a pretty private guy who loves staying home, tinkering with art and music, or diving into video games. But ever since that inheritance hit my account, he's been on my case about covering the full $1,200 rent and all our utilities, then shoving money into a joint savings. I'd be all for it if we were married, but we're not even after a year and a half together. I want to keep our finances separate. I still chip in my half of the rent every month, and I even hired a housekeeper to swing by a few times a week so our place stays spotless. When I told him flat out that he's not owed a dime beyond what we agreed, he called me selfish for not footing the entire bill. But seriously, pressuring me to bankroll our household just because I can isn't fair. I'm proud I stood my ground. His reaction was a major red flag, not a reasonable request. Trust and money don't mix. Especially when love is just a cover for greed. Now let's shift to something lighter, but still fierce. One dad. One spoiled sleepover guest. And one unforgettable send-off. You won't believe how I shut down a rude guest at my daughter's sleepover. I'm a 36-year-old dad, and last Saturday night I hosted my 15-year-old daughter's birthday sleepover, inviting 5 of her classmates over to celebrate. When the doorbell rang, one girl strolled in with her eyes glued to her phone, didn't even say hello to me or my wife, and handed over her jacket without lifting her head. All evening she barely looked up from her screen, doing whatever teens do on their phones, and I chalked it up to shyness until my daughter told me this girl was supposedly super cool at school. During gift opening, she critiqued every present like she was unimpressed, and when it came to the one my wife and I had splurged on, a brand new iPhone 8, she sneered because she already had the latest model. After helping my daughter set up her new phone, we left the girls chatting in her room, but minutes later she came downstairs looking upset, muttering, "Why didn't you get me the newest iPhone?" Which was totally out of character for her. Curious and concerned, I picked up her phone and discovered a string of texts between my daughter and this guest, where the girl called the party lame and mocked the gift we'd given. It was around 1 a.m., and the other girls were still whispering upstairs, so I knocked and asked to talk to her alone. She looked bewildered when I told her to pack up. Something came up, I said, to spare my daughter any more embarrassment. Downstairs, I handed her the phone and asked her to call her mom, quoting her own words, "You said you wanted to go home, so here's your chance." She trembled as she dialed, tears welling up in her eyes. Her mother arrived, apologized profusely, and pleaded for her daughter to stay, but after a moment's thought I told them it was best they both go home to let the night end on a happier note. My wife later said I overreacted and should have talked it out instead of kicking her out, but I believe sometimes the toughest lessons are the most memorable, and my daughter's birthday was about celebrating her, not her friend's bad attitude. So, was I the bad for showing that spoiled guest the door? Not at all. I stood up for my daughter and reminded everyone that respect goes both ways, especially at her special night. Every parent has their limits, and some guests just don't know when to quit. Next up, high school drama with a twist. When a classmate mistakes a stage kiss for true love, things get real awkward, real fast. Why I told that desperate classmate to back off, was I the bad guy? I'm a 18-year-old guy studying drama at university, and I'm dating a fellow student from my course. My girlfriend is stunning, even if she downplays her looks, and she's always had my full attention. Over time, I've noticed that I get a fair bit of attention from other classmates even though I never asked for it. One girl in particular, let's call her Lucy, seems obsessed with me. She goes out of her way to get paired with me in every group exercise, even rearranging herself into my number whenever the professor assigns us. She even traded away a lead role in our latest play for a smaller part just so she could share a staged kiss with me. I always shrugged it off. I figured it was harmless and that my girlfriend trusted me. After our final performance, we all headed to a small cast party where Lucy had a bit too much to drink. She cornered me, practically bragging about how incredible that stage kiss was and insisting I must have felt something too. My girlfriend was right there beside me, looking stunned and hurt as Lucy went on and on. That's when I snapped. I raised my voice and told Lucy she sounded desperate and pathetic for thinking a rehearsed kiss meant we should be together. Her face went bright red, she mumbled something about being sorry, and then she stormed out in tears. The next day, I found out Lucy's friends have been calling me a jerk for publicly shaming her when she was already insecure. I feel torn. Part of me thinks she needed a reality check, but another part worries I overreacted and embarrassed her in front of everyone. My girlfriend says I handled it the right way to defend our relationship, but a few classmates think I was way too harsh. So here I am I the bad guy for telling Lucy off and protecting my girlfriend? When boundaries get crossed in school, it's messy. But when they get crossed at home, that's a whole new level. Now let's step into the backyard, where one nosy neighbor took things way too far and didn't think they'd get caught. I caught my neighbor professor sneaking into my yard. Should I post the footage? I live next to a woman who, as it turns out, is a professor at my university. A few weeks ago, my partner and I noticed strange things happening in our backyard. We reviewed the security footage and saw her climbing over our gate, wandering around our property, and even lighting cigarettes on my lawn. Feeling unsettled, we walked next door to ask what was going on. The moment I mentioned the video evidence, she brushed it off and insisted she owned that strip of land. She even threatened to call the police on us for trespassing on her property. It struck me as odd, especially because we have 4 no trespassing signs posted, and the camera clearly shows her vaulting the fence. To settle the dispute, we hired a surveyor. The official report confirmed our boundary lines. She doesn't own an inch of our yard. I was furious. I emailed the dean of students at her university, attaching the surveillance clips and the survey report, hoping for some intervention. But despite clear evidence, the dean's office said they couldn't take action. Now I'm considering sharing the footage online, maybe with a cheeky caption like "When your neighbor thinks your yard is her smoking lounge." It feels cathartic, but I worry, would I be crossing a line by posting her on social media? Or is it fair to expose her behavior when the system won't help? Am I in the wrong for planning to share this video publicly to call her out? Sometimes neighbors just don't respect fences or common sense. Now we dive into a misunderstanding that spiraled fast when flirting turns into accusations, and the truth makes it all worse. I let women hit on me and they accused me of being insensitive. Here's what really happened. I'm 22 and I've been openly gay since I turned 17, but I've never felt the need to broadcast it to strangers. It's not exactly dinner conversation. When my dad celebrated his 40th birthday earlier this month, he partied hard and woke up the next morning with a brutal hangover. He had a photography deadline for a local client, so he asked me to swing by their office and drop off his work since he just couldn't face it himself. I headed over, portfolio in hand, and chatted with the staff while they sorted through the prints. A few of the younger women started complimenting me, saying I was attractive and even flirting a bit. I was flattered but mortified at the same time, so I politely smiled, mumbled that I had to run, and made my exit. The next day, my dad called me to say that the women had been gossiping about how rude I was for not encouraging their advances. Apparently they felt embarrassed when they found out I wasn't interested, and one of them labeled me inconsiderate, a bad, in their words, for letting them make fools of themselves. My dad stood up for me, telling them that I was simply there to drop off his work and had no obligation to correct their assumptions. Still, I can't shake the nagging feeling that I should have said something more. After all, they did put themselves out there. Was I wrong to just quietly leave, or did I handle it the right way by respecting everyone's dignity? Not every mistake is intentional, but not every apology will be accepted either. This next one is heavy. A painful past, a lost friend, and a question that might haunt someone forever. I introduced her to drugs and now she's dead. Should I sneak into her funeral? It's been 3 years since I quit using heroin, and I'm 27 now. Back then, I was a real screw-up and even sold drugs for a while. I got together with an amazing woman named Riley Wright when I was deep into that life. She knew exactly who I was, but she still told me she loved me. I'll carry this guilt forever, because I was the one who gave Riley her first hit. After that night, there was no stopping her. She kept chasing the high until it consumed her. She stuck around with me, probably more for the drugs than anything else, but once I got clean, we drifted apart for a long time. Then, about a year ago, she messaged me on Facebook to say she'd been sober for months, that she didn't hold any grudges, and hoped I was still clean. Just last week, my sister called to tell me she'd seen on Facebook that Riley had overdosed and that her funeral is this Thursday. Hearing that broke me. I immediately burst into tears because I never imagined it would come to this, and the guilt hit me like a freight train. I feel like I need to be there to say goodbye, but I'm terrified they'll hate seeing me show up. The plan in my head is to slip in the back, lay some flowers, and leave without making a scene. I need to do this to find a bit of closure for myself. So, am I the bad for even thinking about going? Guilt cuts deep, but nothing cuts deeper than knowing you can't fix what's broken. And finally, a story about drawing the line for good. When family crosses the line into hate, sometimes there's no going back. I told my family they're dead to me, you won't believe why. I need to know if I'm the bad for cutting off my mom and siblings and declaring they're dead to me. 2 years ago I married a woman I'd been with for 4 years, a 27-year-old woman from Korea, and I honestly thought my family would be happy for me. From day one, my mom and siblings couldn't resist mocking her heritage, ridiculing her eyes and cracking jokes about her height as if no real Asian could be tall. Last year we found out we were expecting our first child, and even though they pretended to be excited, everything changed the moment our daughter was born 3 weeks ago. My sister, who got pregnant shortly after me, insisted my wife might be carrying that virus everyone's worried about, and she flat out refused to bring anyone over to meet our baby. My mom went radio silent on my calls, and when I sent photos of my newborn daughter, one of my sisters cruelly replied that the baby had those slanted eyes just like my wife. I tried to chalk it up to ignorance at first, but that hateful remark was the last straw for me. So yesterday, when they showed up at my door with presents for our daughter, I simply didn't answer. Instead, I called them out, told them real family isn't filled with racists, and that in my house, they're not family anymore. My mom burst into tears, begging for a chance to meet her first granddaughter, but I stood my ground and hung up when she wouldn't apologize. Today that same sister texted to say she was so sorry and pleaded to be allowed back in our lives, but I told her not to contact me again and blocked every one of them. I feel both a wave of relief and a twinge of guilt, so, am I the bad here, or was this the only way to protect my wife and daughter from their hate? Sometimes, the hardest thing isn't standing up to strangers, it's standing up to the people you love. These stories prove that doing what's right doesn't always feel good, but it's still right. If one of these stories hit home or made you shout yes at the screen, drop a comment, and let's talk about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.